Okay, welcome once again to Philosophy Online Lecture. We are still on Introduction to Ethics, and the topic which we are going to address today is ethical universality and relativism. Okay, so it could also be known as moral universality or moral relativism. Okay, anyone. Okay, so this is the idea that is moral principle are there universal, that is applies to everyone, or subjective to people or to culture. Okay, so the moral universality holds that for a principle to be considered a moral principle, then it must be universal. It must apply to everyone. Okay, for example, if we say it is wrong for David to lie to Tracy, okay, then it is also wrong for other people to lie to other people. Okay, so for Kingsway to lie to Tracy, then it is wrong for me also to lie to you listening this, as lying is wrong generally. It applies to everyone, not to a selective set of people. Okay, so that is what the idea of moral universality is all about. Okay, so we should note that an action or moral principle is considered universal does not mean it should be absolute. Now, when we say it is wrong to lie, right, that is, and that everyone should not lie, that is a universal moral principle. It is different from saying on no circumstance should someone lie to another person. That is making it an absolute moral principle. Okay, so for it to be considered universal doesn't mean it should be absolute. That doesn't mean that on no circumstance should that offense or that moral principle be breached. Okay, so now the other one is moral relativism, and opposite of universality, and this holds that moral principles are only valid when they are relative to culture or to individual choices. That is, for you to say it is wrong to lie only applies to you or as a person, or only applies to this culture, is not shouldn't be a general thing. Okay, now for example, in some country, same-sex marriage is not immoral, right? So it applies to that is a moral relativism, but to us here in Nigeria and some African countries, it is wrong, right? That is an example of moral relativism to culture. Now, moral relativism to culture is known as conventionalism. Okay, now when it is to individuals, it is known as subjectivism. Okay, so there are actions that I do not see wrong, but the next person seated to me could see it as wrong. So that is moral subjectivism. It's different from conventionalism. Conventionalism applies to culture, right? Okay, so that is on moral relativism and moral universality. Okay, so lastly, let's take a look at the divine command theory. Now, the divine command theory posits that an action is right if God permits it, and wrong if God forbids it. So this is where they base their judgment or evaluation of moral principle. Okay, that an action is only right if God permits it, and wrong if God forbids it. Okay, for example, if Miriam believed that adultery is wrong because God forbid adultery, then she's subjecting herself to the divine command theory. She's subjecting her actions and her words to the divine command theory. Okay, so now some people believe that acceptance of or motive behind this theory is based on the fact that people believe when they obey God's command, there's a reward for them, maybe here on earth or in heaven. And if you do not obey it, then you will not get the eternal life, right? Or it could be to their view that God is a benevolent God, is our provider, creator, protector, and so on. And in order for us to appreciate Him, we have to respect His will, right? So that is and the divine command theory. So there are problems of this theory in the sense that, firstly, it is not everyone that believes that God exists, right? So some people doubt the existence of God, like the atheist, right? Okay, so now an argument could happen between a theist and a non-theist, right? So a theist could say, uh, the drinking alcohol is wrong because God forbids it. And an atheist will say, "Oh, what? I do not believe in the existence of God. So how can you tell me that drinking alcohol is wrong?" Okay, so this is one of the problem, because there are some people who doubt the existence of God. Okay, another problem could be arguments on which conduct. This could even happen between those who believe in God. Argument on which conduct do God forbid and which does He accept. And we can even, it's even evident in various denominations that we have today. Their tenets is somewhat different from each other. There is something that this particular church will do and this particular church will not do. There's something that this particular Islamic believers will do and another sect will not do. Okay, so the problem of which moral conduct do God permit and which do He forbids, right? So that is another problem of the divine command theory. Now another problem is the contradictions in the sacred writing, right? In some part of the sacred writing, let's take for example the Bible, there is where it is permitted for you to take alcohol, and there are some places that it is wrong for you to take alcohol, right? So now these are some of the problems of the divine command theory. And lastly, if we are saying morality is subjected to divine command theory, are we then saying that morality is arbitrary, that it is something that is fixed and it is a must, we have to follow it because that is the will of God? So are we giving saying morality is arbitrary? So that is the last problem of the divine command theory. Okay, so that is all on from ethical universality, subjectivism, or relativism to the divine command theory. Thank you so much for staying through.